Welcome back to Forward Thinking. I'm here, as always, with Charlie.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk through what we call a doctor's office analogy and how you guys in marketing ops or even revenue ops can use this, but we'll focus on kind of the concepts that marketing ops will focus on, but can use for developing your roadmap, which, you know, we've talked about many times can be key to keeping you marketing ops people sane and also keeping what projects you work on aligned to the marketing goals as well as the whole overall business goals. So,
or what Nick from Synchrony calls the road mops.
Yeah, road mops, hashtag road mops. Cool. So, I mean, Charlie, we actually Charlie, you kind of thought about this analogy yourself. And I think when you talked about it with me, I thought, you know, from a consulting standpoint, it totally makes sense. But I think from anywhere in MOPS, you can really take this framework and, you know, use it to your benefit. So do you want to talk through a little bit of what goes into that and how, what's the analogy?
So, I mean, what happens when you go to the doctor?
Well, usually I wait there uncomfortably for like a half hour and look at magazines and kind of wish I wasn't waiting so long, but
what happens if you go to an efficient doctor then? Okay.
I'm just kidding. Actually COVID's made things more efficient in and out, but one
benefit.
You have someone that comes in like one medical, you mean?
No, I said one benefit.
Oh, one benefit. One medical. There you go. But
they're still late. Anyway, but so you go in.
A nurse comes in and takes your vitals usually.
Well, so the first time, if you're going up for your yearly check-in, right? So maybe, or if you're going in and you have a headache or you've got something wrong with you, the doctor's going to run a health check. Yeah, they're going to take your vitals, look at your blood pressure,
ask you.
They do your height as well, which I always find weird sometimes.
And they do weight, which is actually the worst thing. We need to eliminate taking people's weight for no reason, especially if you're just there for a random visit. But anywho.
Okay. And height as well. Like, I don't know why they do that one as well, but it seems a bit.
Calculating your BMI, probably.
Yeah, but my height probably hasn't changed. I'm 33.
You can shrink as you get older.
Okay. Anyway, so they're going to check. They're going to do the health check, right? That's going to be the first step, and you might do some blood work, and there might be some things that because you came in with X, and they're going to end up doing Y, to try and dig into that and figure out what's wrong. So when you apply this to the marketing ops situation, when you're trying to develop your roadmap, you need to do a health check. Mm-hmm. And that's the first step. And I think we'll go through the steps high level and then we'll dive into them.
Yeah. And I think one thing that is interesting too is like the difference between a good doctor and a bad doctor is if you do have something wrong with you or you're showing the symptoms, I don't want to say a bad doctor, but a not great doctor will just try and zero in on that one symptom and fix it. And I think that can happen in marketing ops too, instead of really doing a holistic check on what else is going on that could attribute to that. So think about that also as we're talking through this, because I think that can differentiate
That's a great point. Well. Yeah, you might find one symptom issue in your data, and you might just create a smart campaign to fix that. But actually, it's the issues from integration that you have or something like that you need to fix at the source. Mm-hmm. So first step, health check. Second step, once they've done that health check and they've figured out what's wrong, then you need to write up the diagnosis. You need to diagnose, figure out like what is, write up, document it, and then you write a prescription, right? Like if you have high blood pressure or something, they might give you a medication or a prescription for exercising more, whatever. That's the write up and the documentation of what needs to be fixed. This is the step in marketing ops where you prioritize and write up what is actually going to be on your roadmap. And then the next phase is actually application. So that's like doing your workouts, like taking whatever medication you need to do to address those issues, and then rinse, repeat. So the high level is just health check, diagnosis and prescription, application with that doctor's office analogy. So if we dive into each of these areas in a little bit more detail, so the health check, the the key to running a good health check in marketing operations is the type of questions you're trying to answer. So this isn't, and I like the idea of a Marketo audit or a map audit, but that's not all of it. So it's kind of like what you said. Yeah, you might go around and look in Marketo and think, okay, well, the structure isn't very good, and we need to have a new naming convention. There's a few, we're not using the tool to its full capabilities. We need to maybe fix this thing in lead scoring. But actually, I think the first step of a health check is actually going around your organization and asking them questions.
Yeah.
So it's like going to the sales team and saying, what are the quality of the leads like? Where have you seen missing data? Maybe looking at the recycle and disqualification reasons to try and figure out, what's happening there. Go to your customer success team. Do you have enough information on your accounts? Like, are you able to see when your accounts are, engaging or doing some meaningful engagement that you need to follow up on? And so on and so on. You could apply that to any team really in an organization, because in marketing operations, you are you have these internal clients that you have to keep happy and support, and you're facilitating kind of the people, process, technology, and data to make that all happen. So you want to be able to see kind of what the end result is and ask those questions of people.
Yeah.
And that's going to give you that first layer of what you then might need to dig into.
Totally. And I think that then forces you into that holistic view, because you're not just looking at maybe the one symptom that you know about or that you can see up front within your automation platform. Technology is just one piece of it. I think we're saying that a lot. Like, marketing ops is more than just like the tool that you're using. It's everything that feeds into that. It's the organization that you're really supporting. And so getting that external feedback, something you should be doing all the time, but really can be a great source to identify, what are those pain points. And you can start to see that they all could be related, or some of those symptoms can all, be, have a correlation between them. And yeah, I think it's just it's a much more holistic way of looking at it in a way.
For sure. So then once you've done that first part, right? We're actually in our OpStars workshop. We're going to provide a list of questions to ask all the teams. That's going to be one of the deliverables that we give everyone. So if you haven't signed up for that, sign up. Little plug. But so to finish off the roadmap, so this first step of health check, there's we've identified as CS2 9 different areas that we think you need to focus on, right? So you've done the interviews, you've got a lot of kind of qualitative information from people. Now you want to go into and like dig into your systems and everything and processes and figure out what's going on. So we'll go through each one of these, maybe talk about it in a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first one is your processing pipeline. So think of this as one of the biggest things is what we do in marketing operations essentially is we have tools and we have a data flow process to be able to input data into our systems, do stuff to it, and get it to sales, right? Or get it to the right person, right? Whether it's BDR, sales, customer success, whoever. And that sounds simple, but today, we've been, drawing up these maps for our clients recently, and you realize, whoa, there's a lot going on here. We might have, 15 different tools plugged into our marketing automation platform. We probably have, 10 major groups of operational processes happening in our marketing automation platform. Things like standardization, data transformation, logging the lead source, making sure that we have the right data enriched at the right time for routing and things like that. And then, that goes into marketing automation, it goes into Salesforce, and then you have tools in there, like maybe lean data for your routing. And so that you tying this whole thing together is super important. And these days, customers expect, if they fill out a form, like a contact us or a demo request, they want instant response, right?
Yeah.
And there's tools that can help you with that you could like layer on to bypass all of your systems, like kind of Chili Piper or something like that. But if they're going to go through your regular system, you can't wait, even 20, 30 minutes, few hours for that to get to your salesperson, because that person's already going to left your site.
Yeah.
And that salesperson wants to be able to follow up with them in minutes. So that's one key area of your processing pipeline, to the speed to lead, I think people call it, or like getting the speed for the sales rep. Then also just finding inefficiencies and issues, right, with your sync, the marketing automation platform, Salesforce sync. Are you losing leads places? Are they not even getting into Salesforce? And there's a lot of things you can dig into there. But the processing pipeline and making sure everything's tying together and the data is flowing through properly, that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and I think if you're an organization that's early on in kind of sophisticating your marketing ops, this whole area could be your whole roadmap for that quarter.
Right.
Like just getting that nailed down, I think.
It's a big undertaking.
It's a big undertaking, but it's also the most important when you think about a marketing ops job, besides like supporting campaign execution. If you're doing that, this is the second piece. Like, just how do you get all of that good data, the leads, everything? How do you get that over to sales? And you're responsible for that normally. So, all right. So second,
and then some of this other stuff is related and kind of part of it. But yeah, do you want to go on the second one?
Yeah. So the second one is lifecycle and scoring. And this might actually end up, feeding into your processing pipeline. You'll notice that a lot of these could be kind of interchangeable, which is why we wanted, or not interchangeable, but related, which is why we want to talk about them. But from a lifecycle scoring standpoint, how you're measuring your leads along your customer journey, what stage they're in, how you're measuring those, what statuses the sales team are using in the process. That's a whole big undertaking as well. But also, if you have something existing, it's just making sure that that is nailed down. Everyone's adopting it. Adoption is a big piece here when it comes to like status management or how you're tracking leads through the funnel. And then the scoring piece, just looking at maybe where you can optimize it. And also just nowadays, just get it up to par with like best practices today.
Mm-hmm. And then the next one is campaign operations. So this is all around how do we work with the field marketing team, the demand gen team, customer success team on getting their requests for programs out the door. So that could be the ticketing process they use, whether you use Jira or Asana, whatever tool, Monday. How do we collect the information? What is the right information that we need to collect at the right time? What is the SLAs between the teams? What are our segmentations and program templates? So we know, okay, when this ticket comes in, they've chosen this audience, it's this program type, that we can just clone a program and boom, we've got it done. Making that super efficient is really important, because for anyone marketing operations who's been doing this for 5 minutes will know so much of your job is bogged down by campaign execution, and it's regular stuff, and it's somewhat strategic and it's super important to the business. But if you can just nail that down and remove all inefficiencies, you'll save yourself a lot of time and you're able to focus on the bigger strategic stuff.
Okay, so the third one, operationalizing ABM. So, pretty much everyone's kind of on their ABM journey by now, or most companies. So I think that the key thing here, I think working cross-functionally and why it's important to then interview those other teams, is you can probably find some major inefficiencies with just how your ABM programs are run. Like SDRs might be working in spreadsheets, the field marketers or demand gen team might be, trying to struggle, like how to bridge, how to tie all of those campaigns together to really look at their ABMs like holistically as like a play. But they're really, really focusing on multi-channel here. And then also, how are they then tracking engagement across those accounts? Mm-hmm. Those are just a few examples, but these are all things that I think could be easily operationalized. So all of that is efficient, and like this could make you like a rock star for your team. Like this is a key thing that I think where you can spend your time now to really be impactful, especially during a pandemic or in kind of a recession-ish time where we're really focusing on making sure our dollars are going into campaigns that are trying to get us into accounts that really matter. So, definitely big area.
For sure. So the next one is analytics and reporting. So this is a huge topic, and this is where the questions that you might be asking your CMO will provide a lot of information on where to go. Mm-hmm. So the questions you would ask your CMO are like, do you have the right reports to help you make decisions? Mm-hmm. How are we evaluating marketing impacts? Like, where are the gaps? Things like that. So not only are you going to be looking at the data behind these reports and making sure they're actually right, because it's amazing how often you'll find a report looks great, but the data is wrong, and there's nothing worse than a great looking report that is completely wrong, because you're going to make the wrong decisions if you have bad data. So, but also looking for areas to mature. Every company is somewhere along their analytical maturity, right? Some are just implementing, their funnel, and they're just trying to get just a little bit of insight on how leads are maybe moving through the funnel, and then some insight around how campaign performance. Others are full blown, BI, multi-touch attribution, customer journey mapping, and kind of full on analytics. So depending on where you are, trying to think around how can I mature this, and how can I make this better, how can I make this more accurate, and how can I go around the teams and make sure they all have the data they need, right? So we are big proponents of every individual that you're going to be providing data needs a different view, right? You don't just have like one marketing dashboard. You have your CMO dashboard, you have your field marketing dashboard, you have your demand gen dashboard, you have your customer success dashboard. And even in them, you'll have different dashboards. Like for demand gen, you might have like a paid ad dashboard, a content dashboard. You don't want to have information overload, but you need to be targeting the data to the right individual and making sure that it's very specialized for them to help them make decisions. So again, going around the team, finding out what they need, finding out what their gaps are, and making sure you have the data infrastructure in place to be able to build those reports, and making sure the reports are actually accurate.
Yeah, and I think if you're limited on time, focus on that one for the CMO. We have a great podcast with Leah Allen from Model N that goes into kind of the metrics that a head of marketing cares about and is useful for the board. So definitely suggest going back and listening to that one.
For sure. So team dynamic. Now this is somewhat related to your campaign ops framework, but this is it is a bit more internal. So you need to look at where your marketing operations team is in terms of the members that you have on your team, the skill sets that you have. So run a skill set audit. And I know it's difficult because there's so many marketing operations skills that everyone needs to know these days. But every, we said this the other day, like every marketing operations person is a snowflake. We're very unique, right? Everyone's got different tools that they've used, different levels of expertise within those tools, and across all of the other things like data, analytics, campaign performance, like all of that stuff, everyone's got a different level of skill set. So you need to see where you are, where your team is, and then if you want any kind of guidance, I always recommend looking at Scott Brinker's 5Ms, where he breaks down the 5 different roles of marketing operations. So go check that out. But look at your skill set and see where you have gaps. Like, do you need an engineer? Do you need a data analyst on your team? Do you just need more campaign support? Run that audit, figure it out, build the business case to get that headcount. I know it's very easy to say build the business case to get more headcount. It's very hard to do, but you need to do that audit first.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, data governance. I think this is, one that just gets shied away from because we don't realize the importance of it until we actually embark on some of these things like, reporting, and you realize, oh shit, like our data sucks. So I think, one best practice that we do is like, some of the things is like doing a key field analysis. Like if you use Salesforce, download field trips, see like what fields are existing that are populated across the board, or maybe, haven't even been used, deprecate those, like make sure they don't they aren't taking up any space, and which ones are actually being used. And then as far as like how that data goes back and forth, make sure there's kind of, there's no breaks in like how that data is being populated or maybe even causing issues. And then, some other things like data cleanliness, there's a lot of automations you can put in to make sure that that data is clean or gets cleaned, identifying junk data and getting, disqualifying those records, duplicate management, making sure you have best practices for making sure one doesn't get created, but then if a dupe does get created, how is it managed? And then, tracking your data from a sales process standpoint. So from statuses or sources, making sure there's no gaps there, because that's going to be all key to your reporting.
And then the only one I'll add there is, data exit, deletion, and archiving, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you have a good process around that. There's nothing worse than a database just growing and growing and growing, and you don't have a way to, get rid of the data that's not important anymore. I know it's hard to do that. People struggle with that, but you have to do it.
Yeah. And I think a big thing here is to then, once you do that, like, make it very clear on how the data should be leveraged by the team. Do you have global segmentations for how you do list building? Do you have like a certain set of fields? Like, we only go off headquarters for routing and for a business standpoint, that data, because there's so many different like addresses that you can use. But from a, a team perspective, like, what are the rules of engagement for that data?
Yep. And then finally, we just got two more before we wrap it up, to really go through all the stuff that we would think about for a health check. And there's a bit of information overload, but we'll probably write this up at some point. So the opt-in and compliance management. So this is a big one. A lot of companies probably need to prioritize more. GDPR came and went. Some companies took it seriously, some didn't. And I think compliance and regulations are not going to go backwards. They're only going to get more strict. So getting ahead of it, making sure that you're not going to have any liability issues in the future. And in my opinion, like, these things just make people do better marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're buying cold lists and spamming the hell out of people. I mean, not only is that illegal in some countries, but it's also just not very good to do either.
No.
So it's like, okay, these policies are a good way to force some people out of that old way of thinking. So I think it's a good change agent to make sure that you've got people, doing the right things, and you have policies in place and working with your legal team, and you got the right processes in place to track everything properly.
Mm-hmm.
And totally. The final one is just a Marketo, HubSpot, Pardot, whatever, marketing automation platform audit. This is the stuff I kind of talked about at the beginning, where you're looking at the simple stuff, right? Is the structure right? Do we have the right program channels? All of that, just general Marketo, marketing automation platform audit stuff that isn't fit into everything else. And are you using the platform to its full capabilities?
Yeah, that's a big one, because I think that there are some things, even today, I'm, noticing like, oh, this could be best leveraged, like recipient time zone or head start on emails, or, dynamic content, where like a lot of people just aren't leveraging it. And I think doing that analysis and then build a plan for how you can is key.
Yeah. So that's the health check. And we went through the other steps after that. But like we said, think of it as a doctor analysis, a doctor, visit. That you're going to do the health check. You're going to figure out what's wrong. And the health check would include everything we just talked about. Come up with the list of everything that needs to be addressed. Prioritize that. Write the prescription, which is, okay, you need to do this first. We're going to do this. That is your roadmap. And then work that. And then, we've got other videos and conversations that we've had around how best to actually work. Like, we won't go into that today, but we believe that agile methodology is a good one, and working in sprints. But, obviously you got to do the work. So once you've done the work, I would then bake this health check into your yearly planning. Some people like to do
quarterly.
Some people if you want to split out the health check into different groups every quarter, if you want to do a big one at the beginning of the year or kind of end of year, maybe, depending on when there's you have the time to do it. But just think it through in this logical step and make sure you're doing it, because there's so much going on in your whole marketing operations function that if you just don't take the time to go back and have that health check, everything gets wildly out of control. And then you're just fighting fires and you can't really get anything done.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Cool.
All right. So that was it. That was a lot. And, for everyone, make your best decision. Start with the things that really matter first if you're a small team and you want to prioritize. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys, and we'll see you on the next episode of Forward Thinking.
This is Charlie. So if you liked what you heard, hit like on the platform where you watch this. Also, leave a review. Honestly, we'd really appreciate it. You can also subscribe where you listen to your podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or even YouTube. And make sure you subscribe to our newsletter, which is packed full of exclusive content, updates for events or courses that we might be doing, all designed to elevate your marketing operations and B2B strategy. See you next time on Forward, and Forward is up.